We're now in an age where one single technology can affect billions of people all at one time. They actually, as a result, cause upheavals and disruptions in a whole wide range of industries and areas: entertainment, transportation, healthcare. A lot of these technologies we can no longer study in a lab. They sort of have to be put out there for people to be exposed to them and for people to use them. And how do we understand that at scale and guide these technologies to more positive outcomes? We need data scientists to help us understand that.
So we are one of the top universities in the world. We're one of the top 2 public universities in the United States. This is the full Block M. You're getting the full deal here. And the only difference is you won't necessarily be able to go to all 7 home football games. Graduates of this degree are fully vested members of our alumni community, removing the constraint of having to travel and live in Ann Arbor. It's just not practical for a vast population of potential students, but still being able to benefit from that world-class expertise is an incredible thing.
I think that what's exciting about data science right now is that it can be used across sectors. So whether you are interested in healthcare or education or work with Silicon Valley companies, all of those areas can be informed by data. And that's part of why when we're dealing with high stakes areas like healthcare and education, that ethical use of data becomes so important, and our care to make sure that we aren't biased is important.
Hello, Chuck here. We're in Milan, Italy. Hello, Chuck here. We are here in Paris, France. Well, hello. We are at Bletchley Park. Here we are in Orlando. Here we are in
So my name is Charles Severance. I am a clinical professor at the University of Michigan School of Information. I am now, by far, the most dominant Python class in the whole world, touching over 2 million lives. And you might say, why is that? Well, I claim it's because of the assessments. If you end up doing my homework for 2 hours, you're doing the job you're supposed to eventually do. I mean, my homework is job-ready skills, right? I mean, I don't have homework that is a waste of time just so I can make it hard for you. So I hope that when you participate in this new master's online degree, that you are as excited as I am. I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to see something that I consider completely next generation in terms of approach to teaching. So I really hope that someday we meet and someday you can tell me what you think of this particular experience and to see if you saw it as wonderful as I believe that it's going to be. Go Blue.
The maths program provides the rigorous and innovative curriculum to all the students who are interested in becoming an applied data scientist. You will leave here with the portfolio that proves that you can do end-to-end applied data science and you can apply these techniques you have learned to real-world problems. And we're super excited to meet with you, to work with you, and to collaborate with you. Go Blue!
Hello and welcome to the University of Michigan School of Information informational webinar on the Master of Applied Data Science degree program. My name is Amy Humkus Hayes and I'm an employee of the University of Michigan School of Information and a proud University of Michigan alumna. I welcome all of you today as you hear from current MADS students about the MADS program. So before we get started, I'm going to just talk about a couple of housekeeping issues. So the first is that we're using YouTube live events to post your questions and for our panelists to answer them. So if you have a question, anything and everything about the MADS program, I welcome you to post them to the YouTube chat that you'll see to the right of your screen. And I'll go ahead and serve those questions out to our esteemed student panelists. The second thing to know is that, like I assume most, if not all of you, all of our panelists and me are joining you from our homes. So in an instance where we lose connection, or if you see a wayward cat or dog in the background, that's why. But we're eager to spend about the next hour or so with all of you as you talk to our current MADS students and get to know about the MADS program in more detail. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and let our student panelists introduce themselves. Bea, can I start with you?
Hi, yeah, I'm Bea Johnson. I live in Seattle at the moment, and I started the MADS program in September.
Great. Ani?
Hi, I'm Ani Madurkar. I am an IT data analyst working for Jackson National Life. I started the MADS program in September as well, and I'm entering my second year, about 50% through with the program, entering my second year this fall.
Great, thank you. And Nesma?
Hi, I'm Nesma Selman. I'm from Egypt. I work as a customer care supervisor in Vodafone, and I joined the MADS in winter 2020.
Great, thank you so much. So Nesma, let's come back to you. Can you talk to us a little bit about what motivated you to apply to and ultimately to join the MADS program?
Well, during my work in call center, I noticed that the customers call the call center for certain reasons that are repeated on daily basis. For example, they are expecting us to do some kind of activation for services or changing rate plans in certain times of the month. So I thought that having regular requests from the same customers every month might be something that we can automate or we can predict, because I know there are certain reasons that make customers call us. So I thought of learning data science to work on or improve my work as a call center to predict the time of the call for customers and predict the type of call and make the request before customers call us. So I thought of learning data science and do automations and algorithms to predict the calls that we receive in the call center, and this will be for sure a better customer experience, because it will be amazing that we do the requests for customer even before they call us.
So what I really appreciate about that, Nesma, is it sounds like you're saying that the applied nature of our program, the idea that you can take what you learn in the MADS curriculum and immediately apply it to, as well as apply it in the future to your current job or industry, was one of the things that really sold you on the program.
Exactly. I think this is a very good thing, because I see many of students in MADS are having practical experience, and they are domain experts in their domain. So it will be great if they learn data science and applied it in their domains, so they will make a change and a boom in their domains. It will be a great thing.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Bea, what about you? What motivated you to apply to MADS?
Yeah, so I worked in commercial real estate for 6 years, and I started as an engineer there doing full stack development, and then moved over to the data team because we needed to build out more analytics dashboards and start to understand more about our users presence, conversion rates, A/B testing, all that type of stuff. I worked with a very specialized data scientist at the time, and we were growing our team internally because CBRE is a company that needs tech and development, but isn't a tech company. And so I wanted to start the MADS program to get more of that breadth, even though on the job I was learning building analytics dashboards, doing some computer vision projects with commercial real estate, and also doing NLP projects and putting those features into basically it's almost like a Salesforce dashboard for our brokers. So that applied knowledge being applied also to my job, I found that being able to also work and do school was a nice mixture between the two.
Great. And it sounds like what you're saying, B, is that the program enables a certain kind of flexibility given its 1 month, 1 credit courses that is enabling you to meet kind of simultaneous objectives, both professionally and professionally as in what you're, in your job, but as well as kind of professionally as in getting this credential for whatever might come next.
Absolutely.
That's great. And Ani, what about you?
Yeah, I think so. As an IT data analyst, I have done, with my education and my work experience, I've done a lot of data analysis type of work in various industries. So we use a lot of Tableau at work, and there's been a lot of general data analysis, applied stats, SQL, that kind of functions that we do. And I was always looking to take that to the next level. And as I started exploring data science more and more, learning through Coursera, through those online MOOCs that they had on there, I started very quickly realizing that this is just too much for me to kind of self-teach. I needed a higher education, and I wanted to be amongst peers so that way I could really start to elevate my learning at a higher level. Then I saw, my company actually had a data science competition that went on, and I participated in it, and it was for a specific business use case. And we were expected to do a hothouse type of competition to use data science for that use case. My team actually got demolished. We completely lost the competition horribly, but it really opened my eyes into seeing how, like the team that won, it really opened my eyes in seeing how incredible applications there can be when data science uses cross-functional resources and also skill sets to then amplify a specific domain. So right at that time is when I found the Applied Masters of Data Science program launch online. And I was like, this is exactly what I want, because it's applied. It's the focus is how can you apply it to a domain or some specific area you're interested in. And also it's meant to be alongside peers and esteemed faculty, so you can elevate your learning at a higher level.
Well, I really appreciate your candor and so much as what motivated you to apply. That's right. Can you tell me, Ani, as you've been traversing the curriculum, I know that you've had some really positive experiences. Can you tell us what one of the most rewarding experiences has been so far for you?
Yeah. So I'd like to separate it out by 2 categories. So from the social aspect, it wasn't really something I would expect. I think going into any online program, you're wondering how is the interaction between peers going to be. And I've found, so one of the really positive experiences from that end is there was a sports analytics kind of just student user group that kind of got formed just based off of students who were interested in sports analytics through the program. And it was as simple as a Slack channel being stood up. Some of the students from there, they actually coordinated a sports analytics day on the job trip to Portland. So some of the students in MADS got to take a trip to Portland, meet for the first time in person. We got to, set up interviews, not really interviews, but like just introductory meetings with sports teams, data scientists, talking about what they do on the job. We got to meet with data scientists at Nike to see how their day-to-day is, what does the day in the life look like for a data scientist? From a social aspect, that was incredibly rewarding, because you're always wondering, are you really connecting with your peers? And I think the second all of us met in person, it was like we had already, been friends. It was like, because a lot of us went back and forth and trying to, problem solve assignments or discuss topics or just share passions. So it was like just catching up with old friends. It was never like it was meeting for the first time. From a social aspect, that was incredibly rewarding. From providing value at a higher level from an academic standpoint, I would say the MI Start Map initiative, I was able to help contribute in designing and developing with the cross-functional team on the COVID dashboard for Michigan, and just kind of help the public and the government get a little bit more hands-on knowledge using data about how to tackle this pandemic, and how we can educate each other. So both of those have been incredibly positive and incredibly valuable experiences in the past year.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I have a question that I think, Nesma, you might be really well suited to answer, in part because, as you've indicated to us, and as all of you may know on the call, in the MADS program, we are fortunate enough to accept applicants from anywhere in the world. And so, in fact, we have representation of MADS students from all over the world. I think, in fact, every continent but Antarctica. So if you're one of our if you're currently living in Antarctica, please let us know so we can round that out. But one of the potential applicants is inquiring from us what it's like to interact in our program. So how much do you personally interact with others? How do you feel? How much or little do you feel connected to the program? Can you talk a little bit for us about what that's been like for you, Nesma?
Yes, I think that interaction with my colleagues has so far been great. Actually, I'm very happy, and I don't find any problem with dealing with other colleagues, because the best thing I like about maths is that when we started the program, we went through the orientation, which gave us some guidelines and rules on how to deal with each other and how to treat each other. So I didn't have any problem like in fearing of the conflict or misunderstanding that might happen from some nationalities to others. I think all I saw up till now is respect and understanding and cooperation. So I believe that all the time I spend in maths is just directed and spent in studying and gaining knowledge. I don't have any problem or issues or a misunderstanding between colleagues. So I think this is a very good point.
That's great.
I mean, because the rules were set from the beginning on how to deal with each other, this helped me focus more and help, of course, other students to focus on the educational process itself.
That's great to hear that so far the experience has been largely positive for you, and to your very good point that the program works pretty diligently to ensure that there are some clear expectations around things like how to communicate with whom and when. B, what has your experience like in so much as kind of feeling connected to the MATS community and the School of Information?
Yeah, I think the community is great. Slack really helps because you have, the other students at your fingertips. Everyone's at different time zones. So you usually have someone kind of answer your questions, or a lot of people have a similar interests. So you can open up channels on Slack. So I started a data ethics channel for people who like to talk about data ethics and privacy and all of those types of topics that are really starting to hit the news. We also have a great data ethics class, actually one of my favorite courses in the program. And you can really engage with the students on Slack. So it's kind of like running. However much effort you put into it is what you get out of it. And you really can connect with the community on Slack or off Slack, or there are even channels between other students where we help each other out on assignments, and you can exchange phone numbers and get to know one another, and start Slack channels in your location, wherever you are, and kind of meet up with people who are also in similar locations in the program. My favorite part of that is that I really think the MADS program accepts students who like to communicate and share information with one another. And that's what elevates the program, in my opinion, is that the caliber of students of my colleagues, I think, is great, very respectful, very helpful. We're all kind of working and trying to learn on the side, or maybe some of us are learning full time, but I really think that we're all just trying to engage with one another and help one another in that process. So I felt very connected, and I felt, as Nesma said, there's a high level of respect and care in the community, which you may or may not get in other programs.
It's wonderful to hear. And I will tell you, as a member of your data science ethics channel, that there are lots of good articles and conversation points posted in there around how we grapple with data science ethics. B, since you and I were talking about kind of community connection and around how people are traversing the curriculum, both to establish a community and kind of cohort of other aspiring data scientists, but also thinking about how the curriculum is supporting their professional development. You have some previous experience in software dev. We've got folks that are really interested in using their data science kind of machine learning skills in a software-like position. Can you talk a little bit about how much a program like MADS might enable someone to join a data science team, for example, who's doing things like machine learning tasks?
Yeah, I think that I'm about halfway through the program, so we start more of those machine learning courses.
That's exactly right.
In the second half.
Yep.
So up to this point has been more analytics and touching on big data. So that's data engineering, things like that. I think, you know, the data world has so many different specialties, and it will continue to do so, whether that's data engineer, data analyst, machine learning engineer, NLP, computer vision, you know, data scientists. Even kind of these decision scientists that are doing more predictive analytics and data science. I think that the breadth of the program gives you the vocabulary and the understanding and the start to really dig deeper into a subject going forward. So the first thing it can do, if you already have that engineering background, is it gives you the vocabulary and the tools and the software tools that you need to use when you want to join the data team. And I think that just jumping in at work or wherever you might be and saying, hey, can I clean data for you? Because a lot of data scientists hate doing that. And usually that's about 80% of the job anyway. And so just jump in and say, I'd like to clean the data for you. We have data mining courses. We have, you know, teaching about data integrity, data encoding, data visualization, data communication. So really jumping in and using that curriculum from the program and using it to inform a clear communication structure of cleaning data or doing data visualizations and presenting it. I think that any data team would be happy to have you to do those things. And that's going to get your feet wet and get you started on being on a data team as a software engineer. And I think if you're interested in data engineering, it's a really nice mixture as well, because you have that engineering component, but also understanding the vocabulary of data science, and data engineers will take those data science models that you build in the second half or later in the curriculum and implement it in your software. So that software engineering background is going to give you a leg up with that.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for the thorough response there. I mean, I certainly think that your insights are incredibly valuable, and particularly given some of the experience that you've already had. To your good point, we haven't had the opportunity yet to avail our students to our machine learning, NLP, and deep learning courses, but those are coming up soon. And I can tell you, as somebody that's working on the back end of producing those courses, that they look incredibly exciting. So I'm eager to get them in front of you. Ani, you have had a wonderful experience of connecting with lots of folks in the program. And as you know, one of the things that we prize ourselves on is you don't have to have a technical background in order to be a MAD student. Can you talk a little bit more about the kinds of industries or fields that you've seen people come to the MADS degree with?
Yeah, so me, myself, I don't have like, years and years of experience in any given field, but I mean, I studied pre-med in undergrad, was a philosophy major. I also did some neuroscience research, but my work experience is in IT for an insurance firm. So me, myself is a little bit varied. Some of my friends that I've met, they have background, either they work at Nike, or they were a product owner at Nike, or they were a mechanical engineer at GM, and they're just super interested in sports analytics. Or I know there's one guy who's a lawyer, and he's heavily involved in healthcare law, and he has passion for healthcare analytics. One more pretty interesting example is my dad, who's also in the program. He actually has.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I know, it shocks everyone every time, but yeah, so he is kind of more on the data engineering side. So he's a tech lead at a business consulting firm in Southfield, and his background is not really in data science. He's involved in data, but more on the data engineering side. So yeah, like, you have people all varied, but I think what's really fascinating is when you come into the program, you're really encouraged to double down on where you're passionate about, not necessarily where you're coming from. So so like I mentioned, one of the guys, he's more in mechanical engineer working at GM and, more hands-on, but has such a passion for sports analytics that like he's now getting involved in that. And that's kind of where this program starts to shine. You're really starting to ask yourself, how can I use my skills to go into the direction that I want to go, and building on where I've been versus continuing to still stay where I've been, even if I don't want to be.
I think that's an incredibly astute point, that the program is designed to support people that want to advance in a data science career that they're already in, but it's equally designed for people that want to pivot into a data science role. And that could be within an industry or field that you're already in, or conversely, it could be in a completely different industry or field. So we have folks, for example, that are asking about the kinds of data sets that students get to work with. And I know that all of us know that we have lots of different projects or data sets in some of our courses, but particularly our project-based courses, where, for example, if you want to work with healthcare data, you have the opportunity to do that. What's that been like for you, Nesma? How have you kind of navigated your interests in the MATS program?
Well, starting the maths, I mean, before preparing for the maths, first I was taking or going through the self-educational path. I spent around 1 year in taking courses on Coursera, and I felt that I reached some point that I need someone who can guide me to go into a more advanced track. I felt that I wanted to have a mentor that can advise me on what exactly should I learn in the next stage and give me some tips on advanced learning. So I thought that I need to have someone like a professor or a domain expert in data science who can guide me into the maths or more advanced data science program. So this exactly was the reason that I started maths.
That's
Did this
fantastic.
answer your question?
Absolutely. Now, relatedly, can you talk to us a little bit? So you, are a working professional. You're overseas. Can you tell us a little bit about how you manage the MADS workload? So, can you avail us to, how many credits you're taking a month, and then how many hours a week you might spend studying or watching lecture videos or doing assignments or whatever that combination of work might look like in your MADS courses?
Okay, well, one of the best things about maths is that it's very flexible. So I chose to have the least workload. I'm taking 1 credit per month, and I think this will enable me to finish the maths in 3 years. This will make me be able to manage or balance between my work and studies, because I work full time. So I spend around 4 or 5 hours a week studying in maths, and this is a great thing that I can manage beside my work. So this is a great thing. And as my colleague said, we have already a channel on Slack that enables us to communicate with each other and help each other, regardless of the time, because I'm in a different time zone. So whenever I need support, I post on Slack, and my colleagues answer whenever the time is available. So I think this is a great thing as well.
Thank you, Nesma. What I appreciate about your answer is that you're giving folks a realistic preview into the workload. So MADS, as all of you know, is a master's degree. And so it does require, we would say, a high level of work, that there's a certain rigor that we're trying to meet in preparing folks for leadership and data science roles. But at the same time, that we have the flexibility of the 1 credit a month model, that you can take a credit a month while still working full time, for example, and manage both of those things concurrently.
Yes, and what I also like about maths is that I'm working with projects from postgraduate students on data science, real projects. So I think this is a great thing, because by the time I graduate from the maths, I will be already worked on real projects. So I think I will have something to say in interview about practical experience at that time. I mean, I will not be only having educational experience, but I will have practical experience as well.
That's exactly it. So when we talk about our end-to-end data science model, not only are we talking about teaching end-to-end data science skills, but we're also talking about having practical end-to-end experience. So you have a
Exactly.
portfolio of work with live data sets that you can then show, for example, to future employers or within the company or organization you already are in, if you're trying to pivot to or advance to a position. So that's fantastic. Yeah. B, can you talk a little bit more about how you are using or have used different data sets in the MADS program, and maybe what you anticipate using too in the future?
Yeah, well, our current data sets, we actually use a lot of sports data sets. That was a lot of our data manipulation courses with pandas and different things like that. But most of our data sets, if not all, are real data sets. We use a lot, for example, in our presenting uncertainty course, we used a lot of 538's websites data set. I'm trying to think of other data sets. We use Garmin data sets, you know, fitness kind of data from our own professors, which we had to clean and replicate and clean and visualize and come up with a computational narrative. But everything is applied and it is using real data. And so anticipating data going forward, I think it depends on what the projects are. I know I haven't hit personally taking the project courses yet, but when I do, I know it will be a real data set, whether it's downloaded from like a Kaggle, but probably more of a dirty data set so that you actually get the experience of cleaning data and scraping data and all that type of stuff. So the answer is real data, dirty data, things that you have to clean, and things that you have to replicate that you've already seen out in the world being created for data science, like journalism and different types of things in that realm.
Yeah, I appreciate that you are speaking to one of the objectives that we have, which is exposing people to lots of different kinds of data sets.
Yeah.
So for example, wearables data, you know, it suits our purposes in a handful of courses that are early in our curriculum. And then of course, as you traverse our curriculum to later courses, in our project-based courses, for example, you may be choosing the data set, and that could be coming from your employer, or that could be coming from something that we supply. We also, of course, have access, you know, we think about where can you get data? So for instance, if there's a open API that we can use, or if there's a large corpus of data in an entity like Twitter, for example, we might use something like that. So what I appreciate about MADS is that we span, and to your earlier point, be kind of a breadth and depth where you're kind of getting access to a wide variance of data, but then you have the opportunity to kind of go deep in your project courses on data, with data sets or on data topics that are most interesting or relevant to you. Ani, can you talk a little bit too about how you've used, or some of the data that you've used as a MAD student?
Sure. So for the first milestone, so I mean, I think B totally nailed it about the variety of data for the courses. One thing I noticed for the first milestone is you were encouraged to find 2 different disparate data sets in a domain of your interest. You have to write a project plan before you even start, of like, you know, which APIs you're going to link up to, things like that, where you're going to get, and find an insight by combining them together that you couldn't have gotten from anyone alone. Before the MI Start map for me, which supplemented my milestone, me and my colleague were working on combining Census Bureau data with COVID data. So looking at, I believe it was New York Times had a data set or some publication, and combining that with census data to extract. So really there's a lot of emphasis on your interests, on where you put a lot of focus on which data you're interested in, right? So if that is weather data, you know, if that is like, I know one of my, like, if that is weather data, then try to, you know, do some research, try to figure out what that looks like. And there's a lot of courses that try to encourage that as much as possible. I know one of the beginning courses, being a data scientist, a lot of it is focused around you forming the right problem, you thinking about the domain you're interested in, you trying to ask specific and accurate questions, so that way you're able to really start to go down a realm that you want to go down. So a lot of the data really depends on what you end up finding in your domain of interest. Now, the ones that are given to you is, it can be dirty data, it can be cleaned. It's meant to be in a specific focus of an assignment, but the ones you're supposed to find yourself could be an API from a website. It could be, a downloaded Excel file of healthcare data that could potentially be, free for use or things like that. There's just a lot of opportunities, I think, and it really probably would depend by domain. Like, I think I would imagine some domains have it a little bit more locked down, and it's harder to get access to some of that, and maybe that requires different partnerships to be made.
Great, thank you. Nesma, can you tell us a little bit about what your take is on our recorded lectures and our assignments? So as you know very well, our program is mostly asynchronous, meaning that you can do it whenever you want to. And then we have synchronous opportunities, for example, in the office hours that we hold or in the Slack engagement that we have with faculty and staff. But can you tell us a little bit about what those recorded lectures and assignments have looked like for you?
Well, I think also one of the advantages of maths is that the lectures are recorded, because it will be easy for me to see or watch the lectures in the most suitable time for me due to the change in time zone. So whenever I start a course, I check the times of the office hours and the times of the assignment from the beginning of the month, and start to plan when exactly I will be starting to study and do the assignments and attend the office hours according to the times that are available in the course. So the best thing about the timing is that it does not change, or no delay happens, or the deadlines of assignments are fixed. So it is usually easy for me to manage my time and specify the exact time I will be working on assignments or watch lectures according to my circumstances and free time. So this is a great thing for me, because I usually when timelines change or any delay happens, it causes me a problem, because I cannot change the time of my work. So the best thing about maths is that times is already fixed, and the appointments of office hours are fixed, and also office hours are recorded. So whenever I have an office hour in midnight, for example, I watch it the next day, and whenever I have a question to post, I can post it on Slack before the office hours, so that professors answer the question, and then I watch the office hour later the next day.
That's fantastic. I think what really stands out to me about your answer is around how much we care about giving people accurate information and
Exactly.
a structure they can follow. So when we say it's flexible and you can, do it when it works for you, that we're really not just saying that, but we're doing that.
Exactly.
And so not only are we doing that in the lectures and assignments, but we're also doing that in something like an office hour, where, to your very good point, even if you can't attend live by virtue of time zone differences, you can still be assured that we're going to answer your questions, and you'll still always have access to that after the fact. B, can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been like with our recorded lectures and homework assignments?
Sure. I've really enjoyed, again, being able to watch the lectures and do the assignments as I can. One of the things that I like is, for example, I had a surgery that came up out of nowhere, but I was able to because the assignments are unlocked right when you start the class, I could just work ahead and get, the 4 weeks worth of assignments done in 1.5, 2 weeks. And then that class is done and I can just focus on, the next thing in my life. Or I like that, I'm planning an international move. So if I need to take a month off to do that, I still have the momentum in the program to start again the next month. And I know within that quarter, that class will be offered again, like in the next quarter or around that same time period. So I've really enjoyed that, especially nowadays in the way that the world is. We have to be a lot more flexible, and the month-long programs allow for that flexibility when unknowns kind of pop up, and you can take care of that. So again, just being able to work ahead or, slow down in the way that you need to has been helpful.
That's great to hear. And Ani, what do you think about the quality of the videos themselves?
I loved it. So I've been incredibly impressed with the engaged kind of material that I've been able to learn from the courses I've taken. I did a lot of Coursera before, so I was pretty familiar with the online format. I I liked how it worked. I liked I could do it on my own time and whenever is available. That was easier for me to be more productive. Um, I will say there's another benefit I didn't necessarily think of, which is when you're going down the data science journey, I think you very soon find it can sometimes feel like you're drinking water out of a fire hydrant because there's just so much of so many things. And along that way, it's very easy to feel fairly inadequate. It's very easy to feel like you're not the programmer, you're not the statistics person, like there's a lot of things to improve on. But because these are month-long courses, you're actually achieving something every single month, right? You're actually completing something that a reputed, university and a leader in the university and in the domain has said this is valuable. And there's a lot that does for imposter syndrome or for, just the journey along the way, which is you actually feel like, wow, I'm making progress down this path. And that is something I actually didn't expect. That wasn't a reason why I picked MADS, but that is a big reason why I would recommend it for anyone interested in data science.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So I actually don't know the answer to this question, so I'll just pose it to all three of you and you can tell me yes or no. But do any of you have experience working with our career development office?
No, I have not.
Okay, I didn't think so. So I can tell you that I do actually meet with them fairly regularly. And they also have a staff person who is dedicated to supporting MAD students. So in an instance, for example, where you would like to talk to one of our career development office staff about their experience in helping data science students traverse an internship or job search, or you're worried about your professional presentation, so things like a resume, or for example, you're collecting a portfolio in Git and you want to talk about how you might do that well to be responsive to employers who ask for examples. We're really fortunate that we have a dedicated career development office in the School of Information that have a lot of specific expertise in working with data science students. So although our panelists have not had the opportunity yet to work with them, I can tell you that I have. And so in an instance, for example, where you're interested in getting a remote internship, that's an absolute possibility. In fact, as you can imagine, many of our students have had to move to remote internships just in the School of Information at large because of the COVID pandemic. So that's something that we're already really familiar with. And the good news is that we have a really robust recruiting system called iTrack, which you get access to if you become a matriculated MAD student. And that system is where we post internships and jobs. We're really well known within a lot of large and small tech companies, for example, as well as a number of other industries, so consulting, nonprofits, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity there for folks, for example, to get internships that speak to their MADS goals. So I'm going to go ahead now and pivot back to our panelists as we talk a little bit more about the program itself. B, can you confirm for us what the tech stack is? So for example, what are the tech tools that we're using in the MADS degree?
So far, what I've been exposed to is that we're using Python as a language a lot. And you can start playing with Scala and things like that when you get into the big data class, doing Spark and Hadoop and those types of things for the data engineering stack. A lot of it using Python tooling like Pandas, NumPy, SciPy, or Skippy, however you'd like to pronounce it. And we just the standard data tools, but in the Python world. You can definitely learn the R side if you wanted to do more of that. But that was the reason actually that I chose MADS, is because my work, we use the Python stack fully. And so I wanted to be in a program that used Python more regularly with the projects and with the coursework. We use data visualization tools, and in our InfoVis classes, you can play with all types of different packages, whether that is Altair or Matplotlib if you want to get lower down into the architecture. You can use all kinds of just Tableau. You can play around with that a little bit, but we actually do more of the programming side of that. I'm just trying to think of all the different things that we use. When you go down into big data processing or efficient data processing, you'll use some Python if you'd like to speed up your Python processing code a little bit, down to, you know, just command line, Linux, GitHub, everything that is applied that you would use day to day to hit the ground running, really. So you're not doing a lot of, you know, assembly language or C++ or any of that. But I think that the tooling is great. And in a lot of the courses, you can actually ask the professor in Slack, and they'll usually answer within a day and say, hey, can I use this package? And they'll almost always say yes, unless it interferes with them wanting you to have a little bit more depth or rigor with that. So if you want to use like NLTK, if you're doing an NLP project, or anything with that. And I imagine once we get into the machine learning courses that we'll be using things like Keras and TensorFlow and just kind of that general Python data science stack.
Great, thank you so much. So Nesma, we talked a little bit before about office hours. And as you can imagine, we have folks that are curious, like what does happen in an office hour? Can you talk a little bit about what our office hours are like?
Okay. Well, usually office hours are scheduled for 2 times within 1 week. And we meet with our professor or our teaching assistant live to ask about questions from the lectures that we need to understand more. Or maybe we have questions about assignments that are not so clear, so we need more understanding. And whenever everything is clear and the lectures are clear and we finish the assignments, usually our professors give us hints or notes about external things that they think that it can benefit us in our career in data science. So for example, Dr. Charles Severance was talking about SQL and about his projects, and gave us hints on the best thing or the best application to deal with, for example, and so on.
That's
so
right.
We go to external websites and we discuss the issues and so on.
That's great. So it sounds like it's really a nice combination of kind of Q&A. So in an instance where you do have questions or things are unclear or folks are stuck, but in an instance where those questions and answers are given, then there may also be some supplemental instruction or just some interesting topics that our faculty are currently grappling with, or discovering that they think are cool and want to share with our students. And so our office hours may traverse that as well.
Yes, exactly.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Well, I've got a couple of questions here that I think would be great actually for everyone to answer. So I will start with you, Ani, and then I will work my way back to both Nesma and B. So can you talk a little bit about what your tips would be, you know, your top kind of 2 or 3 tips to be successful in the MATS program?
Yeah, so first and foremost, get as good with Python, I would think, as you possibly can beforehand. I know, so to prep for the program, I finished the Python 3 specialization on Coursera, and that has an incredible resource, which is the Runestone notebook. And the reason it's incredible is because you can constantly practice problems. I did that every single day as I was applying for the program, because my thinking was I just wanted to get as good with Python. If the whole program is in Python and each class is 4 weeks long, which means each week is 25% of a class, your time, your flexibility on how you can manage your time strongly depends on how good you can be with Python. Now, there are some classes that, you know, are more reading and writing, so that can depend on how well you can just digest information, but that comes with practice. Another thing I did to prep beforehand was take the statistics and probability track on Khan Academy. That was all free, that I didn't have to pay for. But again, both of those skills, practice and repetition, as much as possible. Those both will really, I think, help you be in control of your time. Once in the program, one thing I would really suggest is communicate. Really use Slack. There's a lot of benefit in being able to use Slack as effectively as possible, and just reach out to students. Offer help if you found an answer and you see someone else asking a question. Ask a question, even if you sometimes feel like you could spend 2 more hours and get it right. Like, try to connect as much as possible. Being online really puts a focus on the effort you put in to connect with those around you, and that significantly alters your experience.
That's great. Really excellent advice. And as you know, I'm also really I heed that Slack advice because, as you know, I'm there or try to be at least a lot of the time. So there's always a good conversation happening in our Slack workspace. Yeah. Nesma, what would you say?
Well, my advice is for students when they get into maths is to plan their time ahead, because it's very important to start early so that if anything stops you, you will have enough time to submit assignment and finish the courses. So I think the best thing is you should not wait till the last minute to start studying. I mean, people usually find the lectures available and the assignments available, so they wait before the day before the deadline to start, which I think is very stressing. So my advice is you need to start early and do not procrastinate, and you need to manage your time well and prepare yourself during the months so that you can finish and digest the material and the understanding, and so that you have time to ask any question if anything is not clear.
That's great advice. I mean, because our program really is largely self-paced, I think your point about time management and organization matter here, because you are not showing up to a classroom, for example, right? You're not showing up to most of your activity at a dedicated space and time. And B, what would you say? What are your tips?
I think Ani and Nesma hit it on the head. Just work ahead, look at the assignment right when it's open, and then also do as much Python and statistics as you can, even beyond the entry exams that you take, because that's really going to get you set up so that you can focus more on the Python packages and less on the Python language itself. The other thing I would say is talk with your family and your work that you're doing this. And just let them know, there will be some weekends where you will be unavailable. And I think make sure that you have that familial support and that support at work too, when, you have a work assignment that's picking up and maybe you need to work on the weekends, or you have something on the weekend for family and you need to do a little bit more to talk to work to be a little more flexible if you work more than, 40 hours a week. So I would just say communicate also with the people in your sphere that you're both a student and you're also a worker and a family member.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, we talk about work-life integration in the MADS program, and we're really lucky that our cohort is our cohort that is in the MADS program, coupled with the cohorts that are coming in, are incredibly diverse across a number of factors, professional experience, and kind of being one of them, family arrangements, meaning, folks that have small children, folks that have elderly parents, and anywhere in between. And so like you, we take that commitment very seriously to work-life integration. And we do know of instances where folks were taking, for example, 2 credits a month and they drop down to 1 because they have something else that's come up for them, either a large work project or an ill family member. And we completely support that and want to give folks the opportunity to express those needs to us too, so we can help draft a new plan, right? In so much as when they might finish the MADS degree, for example.
I did think of one more, Amy. Could I give one more?
Yeah, of course. No, please, by all means.
That did remind me. I think, so I haven't done as good of a job as this, but I do wish I had. Try to keep a journal as you're going through the program. The courses move fast, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily easier. They just move fast by design. And it's really easy to sometimes kind of not necessarily forget, but just like not really emphasize your accomplishments along the way. You can really gain a lot by seeing like, oh, I started learning Python on this date. Within 6 months, I'm actually, you know, taking the entrance exam, and like within 8 months, I'm actually accepted in the program. Seeing even just one line in a journal, I think really, really helps.
That's a great idea. Ani, since we're talking about the pace, can you tell us on average how many hours a week you spend in each of your courses? I know it can vary quite considerably. So maybe you can give us a sense of kind of the low and high ends of that.
Sure. So I should put a disclaimer about how I am, which is I'm trying to be as thorough as possible. I'm a perfectionist, so like it's hard for me to sometimes just read or learn something about the word Bayesian and not go deeper into some, you know, book about it. So it's hard for me to sometimes give a direct answer about like how much time. I think an average is for one course, average is probably good around like 5 to 10 hours a week, considering videos and assignments. And that can also vary depending on how good you are with Python. So if you have to spend a lot of time, you know, figuring out and debugging Python code, that can easily scale up quite a bit. That can also scale up if you are good at Python, but you're, you know, really just passionate about the material and want to dive deeper. You can dive deeper into any of the material that they have for you, and it'll make for a better experience in your course. You can directly apply the skills you're learning right there. So for me, it ends up, because I'm kind of obsessed about this now, I end up spending a lot of time in a week, and I'm taking 2 courses a month, but I spend a lot of time beforehand trying to get as good with Python as possible. So really, I think a good average is probably close to 10 hours a week for a course, just depending. I think that counts for, you know, sometimes if you're take longer to read or write something, or if you take longer to debug code, it really can vary by the skill or your level in it.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of variability, but generally we say between 9 to 12 hours a week per credit hour. And so it sounds like you're saying, and it looks like Bea and Nesma are nodding their heads, that it's around, you know, that range, and that there's a lot of variability depending on the course and the kinds of assignments contained within it.
And I think one thing to remember on that note, just really quickly, is
Of course.
when I first started the program, I was thinking like 4-week courses. In my head, what that translated to me is like, oh, they took, you know, like a typical residential course, and they segmented it into 4 weeks.
Right.
So what you think by instinct is like, oh, this is 4 weeks of introductory material. That's not the case. It's actually like 4 weeks of sometimes the professor's best content on that material, which means you don't have the first 2 weeks to really catch up on things. You don't necessarily have the time in the beginning to like really get up to speed on things. So it can help to spend a little bit more time to sometimes, you know, acclimate yourself, and that way you can deliver on the assignments in the course.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. Bea, when you talked a little bit earlier about statistics, it did provoke for some folks questions about the balance between stats and math. So I was just hoping that maybe you could speak a little bit to kind of how we're using math in the MADS curriculum.
Yeah, so there is a math methods for data science, if I remember the name of the course. And that's a general overview of the maths that you'll be doing. So a general overview of the linear algebra, matrix multiplication, things that you'll be doing there, general overview of Bayesian statistics. And so basically the MADS program will give you what you need to do your assignments and to do your projects in the program. And then you can take that information and run with it, because there are a lot of resources that we're given, a lot of resources that students share with one another. There's an excellent book that I actually just ordered for myself that was mentioned in the program. It's Mathematics for Machine Learning. It's free online. You can go through that if you'd like to go more in depth on that type of mathematics. And so they'll give you the tools that you need. I personally am diving more, like Ani said, take some Khan Academy courses. They have math all the way through, you know, calculus all the way through, linear algebra, discrete mathematics, all of that for free. They have probability and statistics for free. So I would say dive into that as much as you can, because I imagine when you do an interview down the line, that's going to be asked of you. And the reason I did the mathematics for machine learning is machine learning is coming up. And I personally am like Ani, I like to know the intricacies of how things work, and I can't just leave it alone. So don't worry too much, but the most, like, as Ani said, study the statistics from Khan Academy, go through that, that's free. Practice any statistics that you see online, that's gonna help you out, but the program will give you what you need to get started. That being said, I think the program is very good at focusing on applying and answering practical problems. For the more theoretical mathematics or statistics, you'll want to dive into that yourself, but there's so much online that you can do in that process while you're learning the applied steps if you want to dive into more theory and practice there.
No, I think that that's great. Very well put, in fact. I did get a question that I will answer because I'm the only one that would know this answer, is that will we have more elective classes or application courses? And we will have both elective courses and application courses over the next couple of years that are currently not posted. Yes, we will. So we are actively, in fact, pursuing application and elective courses with a variety of faculty. Most of those are responsive to what our students have been asking for, either by topic or skill. So for example, we are close to finalizing, or we're working on, I should say, creating a health analytics course. We recognize that cloud computing is an interest that many of our students have. So yes, we will have more elective and application courses. So as we start to wrap up, I've got another good question that I want to ask everyone, but in particular, I'd like to start with Nesma on this one, because I think you'll have some great insights to offer us. Can you tell us a little bit, Nesma, about what you've learned about the program that you didn't know prior to applying? So what's like one or more things that's been surprising to you, or things that you've learned that you would love to share with people that are just starting their application process?
What I like about the maths is that at the beginning, I thought that I will only gain knowledge and experience from professors, but I think that I actually gained a lot of experience and knowledge from my colleagues, because actually we are doing a very nice thing, is that every week after we finish the assignment, we share our solution with each other. So we can learn new approaches on how to work on the same problem with different approaches and different aspects. So I think the best thing is that we all share the knowledge we have, and we learn more than the lectures. I mean, there are a part that we learn from the lectures and part we learn from our colleagues. So this is a very good thing. I mean, the collaboration between students is really great and is really adding great value.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much. Ani, how would you answer that question?
I would say I definitely learned about just how new the program is and how incredibly valuable the way it's structured is for students in their domain. I think we all, as we're learning in school or wherever, we're all trying to find our passions and find what we're really want, the problems we're really excited about. And sometimes we get to work on them, sometimes we don't. It's not often we come into a master's program and we're empowered to solve the questions in the realms and in the domains that we're terribly interested in. And I think that has been such an incredibly valuable experience.
That's great, thank you. And B, what would you say?
And can you repeat the question real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had folks that were interested in knowing what you've learned about the maths program, or what's been surprising to you that you didn't know prior to applying.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go with the curriculum standpoint. I really liked the MADS program. I thought it stuck out from other programs because of its focus on communication, data communication, data ethics. I thought the Presenting Uncertainty class by Matthew K. was fantastic. Know whether things up the way that they do is by probability. And so I think conveying that, especially in a world where we're trying to grow data literacy with our audiences, technical or non-technical, I really liked that about the program. So it was not a surprise, but a surprise at how effective it was, in my opinion, with the MADS program, on the focus in every single class on the application of okay, you do all of this work, how would you communicate it? How do you build your Jupyter notebook to follow a computational narrative? How do you make sure that your data is not biased? How do you make sure that you're providing an executive summary to maybe your non-technical executive on what you're trying to present? How do you write up a nice technical report? When you give a talk, you have a 3-minute, talk, and then you also have your quick elevator pitch. And I think that working in data previously, sometimes you can see where that hasn't been taught historically with traditional computer science majors or something like that. And it can show up in the boardroom, or it can show up when giving presentations about the data that you've been working on for so long. And so for me, the big surprise was just how effective, again, the program was in focusing on communication and sharing knowledge.
That's really wonderful to hear. Well, our hour has come to a close. It flew by. In an instance where you had a specific question that we did not get an answer to, I welcome you to email us at umsi.mads@umich.edu. As we indicated at the beginning of our time together, we will have a recording of this webinar available so you can reference it at a later date. We certainly look forward to getting your applications and are very excited about acknowledging and welcoming a cohort of students that will join us in January 2021. And otherwise, as always, go blue.